On this episode of AV Week, we look ahead to InfoComm 2018 and the educational opportunities of center stage, racial diversity inside AV, and the importance of events like Crestron Masters to the AV community. All that and more, next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 348, recorded Friday, April 27th, 2018. AV Camp.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box, and by Middle Atlantic, what great systems are built on.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information that we have gathered this week, first and foremost, his name is Brock McGinnis, and he is from Westbury National. Welcome, sir.
How are you, Tim?
I am well for a Friday afternoon. How are you, sir?
About the same. It's a good day.
It's a good day, absolutely. Also with us, his name is Wallace Johnson. Wallace is a fantastic live staging and events engineer. He also hosts our live show. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Tim. Excited about day 2 of NFL draft tonight.
Yeah. I'm a Bears fan, so yeah. Although I will say really quickly, we got a defenseman for the first time in like 100 years, so it's finally a Bears draft. So, and a UGA defenseman, so not too shabby.
No, he's pretty good. He's pretty
yeah.
good.
We'll see. It's still the Bears. As much as I'm a fan, I'm also a realist. So. Also with us, Megan Needler. Megan is from Middle Atlantic, a company underneath the LeGrand AV. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Joe Carroll comes to us from some underground bunker. He works for Atlona. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. Located in some hidden place in Georgia in the mountains. We're not allowed to discuss that, Tim.
I understand. If you're not watching the video, Joel has a very nice black background behind him, enclosed in some sort of curtain. So as we sit here, we are about six weeks away from InfoComm 2018. So the first story we're going to do actually is from our friends over at AV Magazine. And then they've got a story about Center Stage, the Center Stage lineup. And if you're not familiar with Center Stage, here is the 40,000-foot view. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of InfoComm 2018, so this the 6th, 7th, and 8th, there is an area inside the LVCC, the Las Vegas Convention Center, where every 20 to 30 minutes, there's going to be some sort of subject matter expert talking about various things when it comes to AV, communications, topology, experience, obviously with the name between, moving from InfoComm to Avixa. So this actually started last year in 2017's InfoComm. Brock, I want to start with you on this. When it comes to this idea, and it's been told to me a couple of times, it was very much like a TED Talk meets an InfoComm Super Tuesday event, right? Super Tuesday was when they kind of laid out everything that may or may not happen in the AV industry over the next year or so. But that TED Talk-like experience, and I sat through a couple of them last year, that quick hit, that 10, 20 minutes, you can go kind of sit down, in between appointments. Something like this, is this something that InfoComm kind of had to do to evolve the show and also to kind of give back to the folks that are spending their 3 or 4 days there in Vegas?
I think it's a fantastic idea, and from a couple of perspectives. One, they launched the Tide event on Tuesday, and that's a paying event. It costs about $1,000, and they were criticized. They have been criticized about how expensive that is, and as a result, is it elitist? The Center Stage is the democratization of that. Giving everybody the same opportunity to be able to hear great subject matter experts. Number one value, you get to get off your feet. and sit down for 20 minutes. But last year, Kirsten Nelson put together a fantastic program in conjunction with AVIXA staff, and I think it's a huge value add for everybody.
Joe, I want to bring you in on this. As an exhibitor, Ilona is an exhibitor as well as LeGrand and Middle Atlantic. Do events like this and things like this, when it comes to, as Brock said, adding value back to the attendees? So you guys are trying to get people in your booth, but you're also obviously want to make sure that the event itself maintains some sort of success, and so people come back the next year. Do things like this, resonate with the exhibitors there when it comes to, providing value to the people you're hoping to bring in?
Well, I absolutely think so, Tim. When you start looking at a lot of these trade shows, and I've been to multiple different trade shows before, if there's not that exciting education component to it, a lot of the shows have started to die off in many cases. I feel by providing this level of, this is what we're doing in technology, and this is some of the exciting things that we're doing, it helps elevate our audience, and it helps people go, well, what can I do? How can I utilize some of these other products in order to do what that individual is currently doing at their facility? How are they actually trying to provide value from that standpoint? So I really think that it creates a level of interest that if I wasn't in the booth, quite frankly, I would be sitting there. I don't know that I'll be able to get to any of those, but I've always enjoyed that when I used to work at Integrator, going to be able to listen to some other people and what they're doing. That we're there to learn as much as we are to see other manufacturers. We're there to learn.
Yeah. Megan, I want to read off a couple of these topics to you. It's lifestyle engineers and DJs are talking about audience engagement, the psychology of user interface design, digital content. You've got a number of these folks that are going to bring, again, I mentioned it before, the experience part of AV, which is something that AVIXA, and before that even InfoComm, has been kind of beating the drum for a couple of years. Again, as an exhibitor, is this something that makes sense for you and for the clients that you're hoping to connect with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we get a new diverse perspective, actually, because you're bringing in people like psychologists and Marriott brands and representation from people other than manufacturers and integrators. So it really changes up the conversation around topics that we've really talked about a lot across the years. But how do we pull in some of the other perspectives to enrich the conversation? And these bite-sized, 20-minute TED Talk size platforms really make it a quick, intelligent soundbite for us to enrich the conversations on the floor as an exhibitor.
All right, Wallace, I want to get two sides of your brain on this, both as an attendee, but also somebody who produces events like this for a living. First of all, how difficult is this to pull off on a trade show floor? Every 20 minutes, you've got a new speaker, you've got a new event, almost a new event happening, and then still engaging with the customer, the person sitting there, and then take it from the other side is, as an attendee and as somebody who's heavily involved in AVIXA, how excited are you about this event?
I really like the center stage concept and the way it flows. And from producing something like this, it's really important to look at the content flow in terms of the order of presentations and the content of those presentations, to keep it in an order such that you can engage the audience from a different perspective with such a broad demographic of attendees. So there's a lot that goes into the pre-planning aspect of it, and on-site just makes it look really easy from what you're doing from a preparation standpoint. From an attendee standpoint, I absolutely love it because I don't have to leave the trade show floor to get great impactful information. And with the background of some of the presenters, it's a end user perspective by also, complemented with some providers. So you can kind of walk away hearing, some good case studies to then go to a manufacturer on the floor or a product on the floor to have a discussion around that case study. And after some ideas have struck in your head from listening to what you just heard. So not having to leave the floor to get great content and sit in the classroom for 30, 45 minutes, an hour is a great concept to really keep the juices flowing and make the visiting the exhibitors more meaningful.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, not having to leave the show floor. So,
Yes.
real quickly about that is that actually is on the show floor. It's in the North Hall. I neglected to say that because this year we're in Vegas, and so there's two different halls. So it's in the North Hall. Last year being in Orlando, obviously it was one giant hall. So. All right, moving on here, we are going to be talking about a story from our buddies over at Commercial Integrator. Crestron Masters was a couple weeks ago. The 2018 Crestron Masters event attracted 900 people. About 600 of those were actual programmers. The rest were consultants, which was an interesting take on it. But if you're not familiar with what Crestron Masters is, this is it in a nutshell. And I apologize if I'm making it too brief. It's 3 or 4 days. Folks who are Crestron programmers and now consultants who are speccing Crestron product to get more information and more education in their specific craft. Folks who do control programming for a living, this is a masterclass once a year, right? Yes, it is manufacturer specific. Yes, it is specific about this one manufacturer, this one protocol. But the one thing I come away with this specific event, and I would say that it's unlike any other in the fact that this event has created an interesting camaraderie among the programmers in the AV industry that are obviously Crestron programmers. There are a couple other events, but I have not seen just the fraternity and sorority surrounding this event that I have in a couple of others. Megan, when it comes to bringing integrators together and dealers together in events like this that are, yes, manufacturer specific, absolutely, but being able to kind of give them your ideas and your visions and where you see Middle Atlantic going or where you see LeGrand going, how much value is it in getting those integrators, to almost to yourself for a couple of days?
Oh my gosh, it's like invaluable. I think we all would dream of having the kind of brand power and pull to get 900 of our core customers to spend 3 to 4 days with us every year. A lot of us are us being manufacturers, trying to accomplish this with online platforms, which is obviously a less intimate form of education. When you're talking about webinars, it gives you the convenience of being able to take these kinds of courses on your own and deliver the right kind of education to get your integrators comfortable with your products and your platforms and allow them to train and scale within their own organizations. But it doesn't have the same intimate value as that face-to-face event would have. I would say that it's something that software companies like Salesforce and Dreamforce have been doing for years. And I think Salesforce takes over the city of San Francisco. And what you also get then is the opportunity to get focus groups together and get people really doing a deep dive on your product and making some of your future and your roadmap innovations even better. So it's great. I think it's the right thing for them to be doing. I think I'd like to see more of it. I'd also like to see more of it roll up to the InfoComm platform too. If every manufacturer had 3 to 4 day offsite, we wouldn't have the same kind of response. So how do we start to roll up and put our weight behind particular certifications rather than overly fragmenting and creating too many specializations for our customers to keep up with?
Okay. Brock, from an integrator standpoint, where is that value for, Megan, you mentioned it, the manufacturer specific kind of get together of 2 to 3 days versus doing a more generalized InfoComm type class?
Can you imagine how awesome it would be if we were all invited to Middle Atlantic's rack farm and saw where they grow those racks, and they start out as little BRKs and they kind of grow up into slim 5s, and then coming out the door at the top end or the BGRs and WRKs. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Okay, hang on for a second. Can we all just appreciate the fact that Brock McGinnis, off the top of his head, was rolling off all of those product numbers? That was just impressive in itself.
I've been doing this a while. We had 2 of our staff at Crestron Masters, and we had a third who qualified in terms of the time. We've got one about to write his diamond. We have another about to write his silver. And they tell me that this is the best event that they go to anywhere, anytime. This is camp. for them. They are surrounded at the only time by their peers. There are no salespeople there. There are no engineers per se. Everybody is focused on exactly the same thing. And I'm not sure that within our industry, there are many other parallels, Megan. This is a very specific specialization. AMX, has these kind of events on a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
Extron's technology conferences. There was we had somebody attending one of those last week as well, advanced technology conferences. And these are real pluses because peer-to-peer learning and the sharing that goes on and the problem solving, every problem that our programmers have with specific devices, for some reason they can't make one of Joel's devices communicate with somebody else's device. Well, you mention that at coffee and someone says, oh, I found a workaround.
Mm-hmm.
And that's incredibly valuable. And it's part of that, Tim, is why I'm such a big supporter of AVNation, because I believe this platform as well is a place where people within the business from a whole bunch of different roles and segments of the industry can share with each other. And trade shows are not the place for that.
No, I appreciate you saying that.
There is real value. Take people out of their worlds and out of their jobs and let them immerse themselves. And what do we all want? Really passionate, engaged employees who'd be doing this as a hobby if they weren't doing it as a living.
Yeah.
And that is hugely valuable. And my hat is off to Crestron. Apparently the event this year with their 900 people and the Masters of Technology Architecture program that they started is a fantastic thing.
No. Wallace, I want to bring you in on this, and Joel will end again with the manufacturer. But Wallace, again, back to Brock's point of this is camp, right? And getting together and sharing that knowledge. How important is that, not just for this event specifically, but also as we're looking and constantly talking about raising up the next generation and raising up the next group of technologists that are coming up behind us to share those nuggets and those pieces of information that we've kind of, won and learned through blood and sweat and tears, or somebody else passed it along to us.
No, I think it's huge because the peer-to-peer learning, when we talk about, like you say, the next generation workforce, mentorship, so much growth happens learning from somebody else who's trying to accomplish the same thing as you are. So to get locked away into an environment where you completely immerse yourself in the education of it, one, to go there is probably a decent financial commitment. So you're already, invested into it. But then two, I think there's just a natural energy that comes about being around like-minded people who are, motivated to learn the same way you are. So going off to camp is a pretty cool environment, pretty awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. I wish more manufacturers could put something together. It may not be as big of a scale where you have 900, but even where they talk about where they started with 25, when I've gone to specific product trainings and put specific product trainings on for my employees in the past, there's exchanging of phone numbers, emails, you hear about the stories of how they're connected later on. And so just that whole, like I say, get away, go to camp, go to learn environment is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And really quick plug, Steve Greenblatt, the host of our State of Control show, he was at Masters for the, umpteenth time. I think he may have missed one. He actually recorded a special episode of that right afterwards with a bunch of folks. One of the gentlemen, my buddy Dave Hatz from AVI Systems, got his job at AVI Systems because he had connected with somebody at Masters a number of years ago, right? It is that camaraderie. Joel, we'll end up with you, another manufacturer. What does this say, and how important is an event like this? Yes, again, it's just manufacturer specific, but again, it's teaching us, at least from this conversation, it's teaching us something that we as the AV industry as a whole can take away from.
One of the things, and I kind of equate this. My wife has a Jeep Wrangler. We drive her Jeep Wrangler. We join Jeep Wrangler clubs, and everywhere we go, there's a sense of community. Now, granted, we're driving a Jeep off-road. We're not doing electronics, but it still has the same the same correlation here. And what I really like about this concept is the sense of community that it builds among programmers, among all the guys that are getting together. It's not just even when they're there talking just about what is Crestron doing. It's what are you doing? I think Brock kind of said it before. Somebody goes to the water cooler and they're drinking a cup of coffee, and next thing you know, well, I ran into that issue. Well, that doesn't stop there. That leaves that community, and now another relationship's formed. So like in Dave's hat standpoint, it betters the industry because Dave found out about a job there. I think these events are not just good just for the manufacturers, but for AV community as a whole. As we continue to grow and we get more technical in what we're doing and the things get a little bit more difficult for us, having that place to be able to go and talk to everybody is huge. So that's part of it. I think the other thing is I've been to some of these events, and the ideas that come out of these events are amazing. I mean, some of the products we're probably talking about, whether it be today or even at InfoComm, they actually come from a bunch of people just kind of getting together at events like this, discussing, well, yeah, I know this is what the manufacturer said we should do, but this is really what we need the manufacturer to do. So for us as manufacturers, it gives us the opportunity to listen to that information and then have that discussion with them and say, all right, well, what can we do different? So to me, it's invaluable for whether it be the manufacturer I work for or any of them, for us to be able to listen to their feedback.
All right, absolutely. All right, we're going to end up with an actual story I've been wanting to do for quite a while. It's a story written by Wallace. It's an article written for CN over on AV Network. Title of the article is "Achieving Racial Diversity in the AV Industry." The reason I say I've been trying to do this article for a while is actually it goes back to an episode we did about a month or so ago on AVWeek about sexual harassment in the AV industry. There are certain things that I understand about myself and who I am, right, and where I sit in the industry and in society in general. I'm not going to do a story or topic about sexual harassment without having some women in the industry for me to listen to. I'm not going to do a story about racial diversity with without either the author or some folks who don't look like me to listen to and that I can learn from. So, Wallace, I'm going to pick on you first, but we're also going to have a broader conversation. The first question and foremost, and you talk about a people of color glass ceiling in not just in the industry but also in society. How do you see that, and what are some solutions that you would suggest to kind of get around that, or to use the glass ceiling analogy to break through that?
I see it as the not about what you know, but who you know perspective of trying to break through that. And I think trying to get to a solution, just that we talked about with this Crestron Masters show, is the sense of community that people of different racial, ethnic backgrounds, when they come to this industry. I think Commercial Integrated did a survey background, and the summary was it's mostly older white male, and then it trickles down, and finally you get to the female crowd and black, brown. And so, just the networking of who you're around in the industry creates new opportunities. Just as David was at the Crestron thing, having a conversation, found a new job. So, how do you get new people into the community? And then once they're into the community, how do they excel? And part of that is what you know, and I think a bigger part of that is who you know. And so breaking through that, we have to get more people engaged from a networking perspective in the community to get to know more people, to be aware of more opportunities to potentially move up.
And is it something where it's using not? I apologize, but using the people to let them know, hey, I'm interested in maybe a different opportunity, or hey, I'm available for another opportunity.
It's part of that. I think the other part too, with the value of social media, you don't have to be physically in a community to be part of a community. So those who are viewed as the minority in the industry, I think also have to be proactive in letting their expertise know. You don't have to truly, I won't say truly be an expert, but you can put comments and ideas and thoughts of what you know out there, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think the hindrance and hesitation by so many people is that, well, I don't know everything, or I'm not, I don't view myself as an expert. And it's like, well, a lot of these people aren't. So just put your thoughts out there with others and just be part of the conversation, to where you can start to learn and grow your, expertise, to then be more engaged in the community. And so I think, being in it doesn't necessarily mean a physical thing, but just being proactive and making your voice heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Megan, almost a month ago now, Middle Atlantic hosted an AVIXA women's event from the Northeast. AVNation would broadcast live from there, interviewed a number of folks. And the thing that struck me as I was watching that, I was not there, my buddy George Tucker and actually Steve Greenblatt was the host for that one, was the diversity in that room, right? And it was interesting seeing all the different, just the different communities coming together. What can manufacturers do, not just from a female diversity standpoint, but also from other forms of diversity to help encourage that?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank Wallace for writing the article. And Tim, I want to thank you for not being afraid to have some of these conversations, the sexual harassment conversation, covering the AVIXA women's event, having this conversation right now. I think this is a huge step forward. I think it's recognizing that we have an issue and not being afraid to talk about it is going to help us start to build solutions, right? I'm more familiar with some of the issues surrounding gender diversity than I am racial diversity, just from some of the programming that I've been involved in. And, a recent study with McKinsey and Company and Lean In, the Women in the Workplace in 2017 study said that 50% of men do believe that women are well represented if only 1 in 10 executive leaders is a female. And 30% believe that women are well represented if only 1 in 10 is female. So if we believe that they're well represented, then we don't believe that we have a problem, right? And there are some references to racial diversity in this study as well that talk about specifically women of color and how it becomes a compounded issue for women of color, right? That they're dealing with a double discrimination. And so I think this is the first step. And really, when it comes to manufacturers starting to improve diversity within their organizations, is that we have to start talking about it. I think everyone's afraid they're not doing enough. Well, guess what? None of us are doing enough. So if we don't start talking about it and working together, we can't move forward as an industry. So I think this is really the first step, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Joel, I want to bring you on this because one thing I appreciate about Atlanta, because like AVNation, they're a very disparate group of people, meaning Joel's in Atlanta. There's a bunch of people that are in San Francisco. There's some folks that are in Colorado. Not only that, when it comes to that disparate group, how do you kind of create a community and include this diversity aspect when you guys are all sort of kind of spread out and not exactly, in each other's backyard?
I mean, it's obviously when you're doing that, it's a challenge to start. But one of the things that, we do as a company culture is, for example, they might have a picnic. We're all invited out, and they always encourage community. Every Wednesday, they have something called Pride Lunch. So they get everybody together, a different group in the office would go in and would pick what the lunch is, and everybody gets together and they continue to keep everybody talking. It's one of the things I really enjoy about the company is no matter where you're located, you're always included somehow. You can't make it to the Christmas party. They find ways to inject you into the Christmas party, but everybody's always welcome. And that's a challenge for a company when you have employees all over the place, especially with a company of our size. Probably 50% of our employees at this point are living throughout the United States. Some of the things that we do is we just have these types of conferences. We all get together and we talk. We recently had a sales meeting, brought everybody out, and the whole company's involved in the sales meeting, not just the sales staff itself.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's nice. It's a very open community. We just did that for our reps. And again, when our reps are out there, everybody's part of that community. Everybody's involved in that meeting, and we're not exclusionary to people. It's a nice opportunity to be able to meet everybody.
Yeah. All right, Mr. McInnes, we'll end this on you. Not for nothing, but Brock is one of my mentors and somebody I look up to a lot. So give me some words of wisdom here, sir. What exactly can we do to make just more diverse in general for the AV community?
I'm not a big fan of tokenism. I think you find good people. And in order to find good people, you have to erase some prejudices and biases, from your mind. But it's not just attracting people who are different than I am or different than you are. Something you said really resonated with me, Wallace, was about how do you promote somebody or bring somebody up in the organization, give them more responsibility, promote them. And one of the barriers that we have as people is less about racial discrimination than it is cultural discrimination. It may be about the way a person communicates. It may be about the way, how they dress or where they are or how they look. And we're very fortunate in Toronto. We're an incredibly multicultural, multinational, diverse community, and where Westbury is in Scarborough, we are a reflection of our community. We've got a bunch of everyone, and we're still trying to work harder to be able to ensure we promote someone, maybe even if they have an accent. They don't speak, or they are dressing different, or they're hanging out with different people. One of the issues we have culturally is that we ghettoize. We all ghettoize. We hang out with people who are like ourselves, which is the definition of what a ghetto is. And as a result, by hanging out with people like you and I, we're excluding somebody who's different than you and I. And as I've gotten older, I've become particularly conscious to how isolated I can become from younger people who have an awful lot more to say about today's technology and today's marketplace. About Asian people who have an incredibly different perspective on mass market and mass adoptions and some different price points. And so we're working very hard to be conscious first about not just hanging out with each other, about not just promoting somebody who fits a visual mold of what a manager used to look like, or what a site lead used to look like, or sound like, because with people from many different countries working for us, well, some don't communicate as well as others in the English language, but that doesn't mean they don't communicate well, just differently. And they're smart, and they know their jobs, and they do their jobs really well. And I'm the only one that has a problem with it. You listen to two recent immigrants speak to each other in English, and they've just each learned really, kind of street person English in the last couple of years. They understand each other just fine. I may have to work a little harder to do that. Well, you know what? We've got clients who are just like them, and clients appreciate the diversity that we have, and being served in the marketplace also by people who can speak their languages and who will hang out with them. This is a great topic, Wallace, and I joked about it earlier. Yes, the AV industry has become way too old and way too white, and certainly in my case, way too overweight. But technology is a common language, and that is what we do share. And that is across cultures. I have to think that English is not the first language for 500 or 600 of the people that I engage and communicate with on Twitter. And that's cool, and what we have in common is technology. So it's not, this is not a US-ish black-white thing. It's culture, and we're lucky, because you look at a Google and you look at an Apple, and companies of that nature, they don't have the problem. They're really diverse, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that actually comes down to the company culture. Honestly, you look back and purposeful. So.
Well, they hire for brains.
Yeah,
and that's brains come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And genders.
Yep. All right, that is going to be where we leave it for this week. Thank you all so much for joining us. Mr. Wallace Johnson, how do people find you and connect with you if they so desire?
You can find me on LinkedIn and on the Twitter at WallaceCTS.
Wallace CTS. All right. Also, you can catch Wallace running around InfoComm this, in about a month or so. So, also Miss Megan Needler from Middle Atlantic. Thank you. And no, you're muted. I think I might have muted you. So,
I think it was me muting. Sorry, my dogs decided to bark for the first time all day during our cast here. So sorry about that. For those
all right.
just on audio, I'm sure that was extra fun. But yes, I'm on LinkedIn, and you guys can find me at InfoComm. It'll be the first time you'll get to see Middle Atlantic combined with all the milestone brands of Chief Audio and Daylight in the same booth, number C3683. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys.
All right, absolutely. Joel Carroll, you go ahead and get your booth number in there. Thank you so much from Atlanta. How do people find you or come by the booth at InfoComm?
So come see us at the booth at InfoComm. Our booth is C3576. We've got some exciting stuff we'll have there. Find me on LinkedIn or email at edu@atlona.com.
Very good. And last but not least, thank you so much, Mr. McGinnis. I always appreciate it.
Well, it's great to be here, Tim. I'm at Brock McGinnis on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm Brock.m at Westbury. But you can also just pick up the phone and call. My number's everywhere. I wanted to introduce the world to Sugar, my new puppy. Sugar's been enjoying our broadcast today and having a great time, and I have no shoelaces left because she got them.
Yes, but she didn't bark.
No, the other one did, and I managed to mute and deal with it. So.
Oh, it's all good. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on the Twitters, as we mentioned at the top of the hour. I'm a Bears fan, so I'm excited that they drafted it seemingly well. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. Couple things that just popped up this week. First of all, registration is open for our Tweet Up. It's a free food and drink event, networking event, first day of InfoComm, June 6th from 4 to 6 in our room N217. Come by, have a drink, meet some people in real life that you communicate with on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, no big deal. Still come by, have a drink and food. Thanks to our sponsor for that, Starin Marketing. Also, our second webinar, we did one about a year ago. We're doing another one, actually looking at all the various AV over IP protocols, right ahead of InfoComm, because Joel mentioned they've got some exciting stuff. They're one of the technologies we'll be talking about. Just kind of cutting through all the marketing and looking at the actual protocols and what they're doing on the network and why you would want to choose one technology over another. So that happens May 17th, so you can register that on the website as well. Also, while you're there, please take a look at our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and all the coverage that is surrounding InfoComm. All that and more at AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AVWeek.